Are you ready to unlock your full potential and maximize your productivity? Look no further than Productivity Smarts, the ultimate audio podcast hosted by renowned productivity expert Gerald J. Leonard. In every episode, Gerald shares captivating stories, invaluable tips, and cutting-edge strategies that will transform the way you approach productivity. Whether you're looking to reduce stress, overcome overwhelm, or simply get more done in less time, Productivity Smarts has got you covered. But that's not all. You'll also gain inspiration from real-life success stories of individuals who have achieved greatness through productivity. Plus, you'll learn the latest tools, techniques, and habits that will help you achieve a new level of happiness and fulfillment in your personal and professional life. So why wait? Join us every week as we delve into the exciting world of productivity and help you unleash your full potential. Get ready to take your productivity to the next level with Productivity Smarts. As a productivity expert and host of the Productivity Smarts podcast, Gerald J. Leonard has been a proud supporter of Kiva since 2011. Kiva is a non-profit organization that helps entrepreneurs in third world countries access the capital they need to start or grow their businesses. By making a small loan through Kiva, you can help these entrepreneurs achieve their dreams, support their families, and contribute to their local economies. And with a repayment rate of over 96%, your loan can be relent to another entrepreneur once it's repaid, creating a ripple effect of positive change. So if you're looking for a meaningful way to make a difference in the world, consider making a loan through Kiva. With loans as small as $25, anyone can be a microlender and help change lives. Visit kiva.org to learn more and start lending today.
Well, today I'm speaking to Rebecca Renck, and she is the author of Healing Habits: How to Help Your Body Heal Itself from Chronic Illness, drawing from her own personal journey with Crohn's disease and breast cancer. Rebecca shares how intentional habits can empower individuals to reclaim their health and enhance their productivity. And I can tell you, Rebecca, I know that firsthand with some of the stuff I had to go through. So welcome to the Productivity Smarts podcast.
I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having me, Gerald.
Yeah, no problem. I'm really excited to talk to you. So listen, as you know, when you listen to my podcast, I always ask these questions because I'm a musician. And that is, what is your favorite style of music?
I probably go with folk and country, kind of both the same.
Well, some are a little different, because folk music, there are certain things that's different about folk music, and same with country and Western. So they're a little bit different genres, but they're very close cousins. How's that?
Close cousins. I'll go with that.
Well, what's one of your favorite songs?
Oh, I'm from Colorado, born and raised, and I couldn't call myself that if I wasn't a John Denver or Rocky Mountain High fan.
Okay, gotcha. That makes a lot of sense.
With that said, I have always loved Journey, anything Journey does. Styx. I was a big fan of Styx and Journey. Even some of ELO. Yeah. I'm a 70s girl, early 80s.
So. That's awesome. I love Journey. Phil Collins and that whole group. So he's an amazing drummer and singer. I feel you. That's really cool. So listen, you've had this amazing health journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did you get started in this field of health? And obviously, you had your own personal story, but as you've gone through it, what do you think is the one thing that you can kind of see as a thread throughout your life that has helped you to become successful and overcome some of these challenges?
I believe I made a decision very early on. When I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, had no idea what that was.
Right.
Have no idea what that meant. That was in 1990. Oh, wow. And it really wasn't very well known.
Right.
And I didn't have a lot to go on, it was before the internet, before, a lot of things. And the medical side was telling me, it's probably something that you're eating. It's the foods that you're eating. Yes. It might be stress related, but we're not going to say that. And the 3 medications, I think there was 3 or 4 medications that I was possibly given. 2 of them I was allergic to.
Oh, wow.
And so that didn't help me. And so it was, your prognosis is do what you can to help yourself and know that you're probably going to have surgery within 5 years. This is going to be your life, blah, 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 blah. And I just didn't like that,
Yes.
to be quite honest.
Yeah.
It was like, what? This is new age medicine here. What's going on? And
Exactly.
so I kind of got in touch with I don't know, I call her my angel doctor in the book.
Okay.
And she kind of led me into more of a holistic thought process, meditation. Right. It is stress. And, they kept saying it was the foods that I was eating. And, everything that I was eating was causing me problems. So right. That was just frustrating.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of went on my own path and said, if it's going to be managed, I'm going to manage it. Right. And then as I went on farther and farther over my life, it became, well, we have all these new drugs, we have this and we have that. And, then the side effects were this and that. And I was like, nah, I don't think I want to go there still. Right. And it's gotten to a point now, the reason I wrote the book was, in fact, giving people permission. Yeah. I really believe, compared to where I started in 1990, and the amount of information, the amount of home tests, the amount of support, there's just no reason not to help yourself and kind of look outside of the box. And I'm not saying the medical treatments are all bad. Right. They have their place, and it has to be kind of a balance in between. Yes. But you also have to take responsibility for yourself.
Yeah, and you do. And it's funny because in my journey, because I had like a major bout with vertigo, that's why I started the whole podcast. I had this major bout with vertigo, and it left me with a vestibular imbalance. And there was no medication or anything. I would go to neurological therapy where they would have me walk and do different things and balance. And so I started asking questions like, wait a minute, so you mean if I do this with my body or stand this way for so many seconds, I'm actually rewiring my brain, and it's just over time, it's going to slowly begin to heal itself? And they're like, yeah, because that's, there's no medication for that. So you have to use your body. And so it led me on a study of neuroscience, kinesiology, epigenetics. And epigenetics is about the environment. And it's about your emotional environment, your physical environment, and how, whether you're under stress or not, it turns on or off genes, which can turn on or off cancer genes, Crohn's genes, all those things just from your environment, what you eat, the foods, and so on. And so by becoming more aware of that, and that's why your book spoke to me so well, is that after becoming aware of that and developing so many practices, which you have, a lot of the things that you're talking about, I've actually incorporated into my life. That's why the book resonated so well with me. And that it was through that. And my last EEG, they were like, oh, you're pretty much cleared up. But it was—
Isn't that exciting to hear?
It is. And it was through holistic approach, yoga, meditation, body movements, brain gyms, and so on. So I want to get into your book because it's so fascinating because, obviously with a lot of the stress that's happening right now, whether it's the economy, whether it's the politics, whether it's world travel, disease, or whatever, we're in an environment that, from an epigenetic standpoint, can turn on or off bad genes.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
And in your personal journey, you experience Crohn's disease and breast cancer, which are in some ways not a good diagnosis. However, you were able to leverage that information, and it influenced your perspective around health and allowed you to become more productive. Tell us a little bit more about that journey.
I think one of the first things I did was realize that I have obviously wrote about this in my book, that you have to make that decision. Yeah. You have to make that hard stand. I mean, it's not maybe I'm going to try this kind of thing. It is, I am going to do this. You have to make that hard stand. And when you do that, you start to create an identity around what you want to be. It's that future vision of you. Right. One of the things that devastated me so bad about hearing that I had a disease was the fact that I didn't think I was going to live to see my kids grow up or my grandkids get married or anything like that. It was just this panic, and that mortality just slapped me in the face, and it's like, okay, I don't want that. This is the vision I have for myself. And so, when we start to see that vision, then we need to have something that holds us accountable. And we need to find that purpose and that why of why we want to do that. It's the millions of decisions that you make every day, every week, every month that keep you on that track. And so when we create that identity of who we are, then we can kind of go forward. Then it became a little bit easier and a little bit easier. And I could start seeing where I was at, if something was out of sync, or I was stressed, or I was stressed in this way or that way, whether it was physical or mental or emotional, I could start to recognize that. And so I think that's where we need to realize that, and people need to stop. They need to stop, take a moment for that space for themselves to understand that something is not at ease with your body. It's not at ease. Your body wants to heal. Right. It heals from a cut. It heals from a broken bone without really much help, to be quite honest. Right. There's just no reason to believe that it can't heal from disease too. Right. And that our lifestyles have actually caused our disease at that point. Yeah.
And that was what I was talking about with the whole concept of epigenetics. Dr. Dawson Church teaches a lot about this concept of epigenetics, but it is the environment. And it's not just, it's also your mental environment, how you think. And I love the idea that you talked about in your book when you're telling the story of how you had to face your identity and realize that you had to see yourself different. Right? You couldn't play the victim. You couldn't say, "Oh, it's me." You had to kind of face the fact that I have this thing. This is real. This is a part of who I am right now, but it doesn't mean that it has to make me who I'm going to be. And so you have to step into who you want it to be and live from that perspective of who you want it to be. And then everything else began to change.
It did, and I didn't have, of course, everything doesn't change overnight.
Yes, no, it doesn't.
And you go back and forth and 2 steps forward sometimes and a step back. Yep. But every time you would step back, you could also see why and where you were going and what you were doing. And that identity, when you get into that identity of not being the victim, not being helpless, and being empowered within yourself and just saying, I got this. I can do this. I got it. Everything else kind of falls, like you said, into place because when I did see something going wrong, and it's mostly stress with Crohn's, or I did see even the breast cancer diagnosis, the first thing I did was say, after I got out of the horrible oncologist's office. But anyway, first thing I did is that, okay, what happened here? Yeah. That was my very first question. What happened here? Where am I at? What's going on with my body that this would show up? And it was, it becomes such a secondary thing. Yeah. Because the first and foremost is your identity of who you want to be. Right. And everything else around you is the secondary. Even if it's a disease, if it's a new problem, if it's a new symptom, that becomes something that you can handle. Your ability to handle it is much easier.
Exactly. And that kind of leads me into the next area I want to talk about, which is understanding your body's signal. You mentioned that every symptom is a message in your book. How can individuals learn to interpret these signals to improve their well-being and efficiency and their health?
Right. It's a process. It's a process. And I think you probably know this too. If you're quiet, if you take the time to actually pay attention to who you are, you have to draw back in, whether that's with meditation, walking around the block, being at the beach, just sitting and watching a sunset. It doesn't really matter. But if you can take time to find that sacred space within you, and we all have it. Everybody has it. Yes. And usually we're just too scattered and busy bee, in the world around us. But if you can take time to really connect with you, you can find some issues. I know 3 years ago, I had a real bad case on my hand it was almost like a cold sore is the best way I can describe, some kind of a cold sore on my hand. It got bigger and bigger and bigger. And it was started by the, to be quite honest, it was started by all of the sanitation stuff that we were putting on our hands. Right. But I also had to figure out what was not only causing it, but how to fix it. Right. And, eventually I kind of came up to, well, it's something I need to put on topically.
Yes.
And pretty soon and when you start asking questions, there was different things that came through my Facebook feed, or you hear of things from different people that says, oh, you need to try this tea, or you need to try this essential oil, or you need to try this. And it was like, okay, I did that. And it actually worked. I mean, it was just a matter of asking the right questions. How can I fix this? What's going on with it? And then when asking my body what was happening, I was in a job that I was using my hands a lot.
Yeah.
And I had to do the sanitation every time, it was like every 30 seconds I was putting, the disinfectant on my hands. And it wasn't necessarily the disinfectant, it was the job itself.
Right. It was the stress from the job.
It was the stress from the job itself. Yeah. And there's other ways. I think there's so many techniques out there for alternative techniques that is just an amazing time right now to delve into who you are and start listening to your body.
I think that's really fascinating because as I went through my journey, as you're describing yours, and you said you had to ask yourself questions. And you were asking yourself at a physical level, like, hey, what's going on with me? Like you're talking to your body, right? And you start addressing it and saying, oh, wait, okay, what's going on, right? Or then you ask yourself from a soul perspective of, okay, I'm kind of going this way, but I feel tugged this way. Why is that? What's going on? And what's interesting is that it's common knowledge that we're multiple parts, right? We have a spirit, a soul, a body, and they all communicate on different levels.
Right, that we don't even know about sometimes.
Exactly. And so by being aware of the signals of the body, because, coming out with a cough or coming out with a cold or a sore showing up, that's your body saying, hey, there's something going on here that you need to pay attention to and you need to slow down. And so you can ask yourself, hey, what's going on that's causing this? And like you said, whether it's a phone call from a friend that starts talking to you and they start telling you, and you're like, that's exactly what's going on with me. Or you go on a Facebook feed and people start sending you messages, or, you walk into a bookstore and there's a book about what you've done. It's like the universe, it's like God just kind of points you in a direction to help you get the answer if you're willing to listen.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Right. And it's the stopping and listening.
Yes.
And yes.
And that's really important. I think, because in the busy world that we live in, 24-hour television, 24-hour on with computers and cell phones and blah, blah, blah. And also, this is a side note. In your book, you're like, don't sleep with your cell phone near your bed. I'm like, up. I was like, I text my wife, I'm moving my cell phone. Here's why. I looked up what you said in the book, and I looked at ChatGPT, and I'm moving this stuff over at least 6 feet away from me.
Absolutely, yes, it is, and we're all guilty. We're all guilty. Yes. And the point is, when you start talking to yourself, and we start talking about what's going on and asking these questions. But what I was saying is once we start doing these conversations with ourselves and we start talking to our bodies and listening to our bodies, it becomes the conversation. You can't listen it with judgment.
Right.
Keep that judgment out of there. It's just a free flow of brainstorming is what I like to call it. You just have to start thinking about, well, what's going on? And just don't answer yourself.
Yeah, just listen.
The issue is don't answer yourself with your brain. Let your body answer for you. Yes. And then all of a sudden that intuitive thought comes to you.
Right.
So,
right. And a part of doing yoga and exercises and things where you de-stress your body allow you to listen for your intuitive part of you to begin to speak out even more. And you begin to hear from your intuition what's going on. And that kind of leads me down the next road, which is the role of faith in healing. So one of your principles is harnessing your faith. How does faith contribute to the healing process and maintaining focus in your daily life?
It's about believing in yourself. It's a sad thing, but I honestly don't think we have a lot of that anymore in our society.
Right.
It's just a flat out belief in myself that I can do it.
Right.
We're always looking for someone else to provide that fix for us, to provide that encouragement, to provide that pat on the back, things like that. And we don't have a lot of internal belief and internal faith in ourselves.
Yes.
And that's really where we need to get to, is that I believe that I can do it. I can do this. I understand that there's medical professionals that understand what's going on in my body. I understand that there's this person over here that can help me and hold me accountable. But I believe that I have that power within me to garner that power within me, within my body. And over my emotions too. We can all corral in our emotions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So scattered.
Let me ask you this question around detoxing your environment. How does one's physical environment impact health and productivity? And what steps can you take to create a healthy space?
I think a healthy space, I'll go back to your environment and the epigenetics and how the environment makes so much difference. And you have to create that healthy, supporting, loving environment for you to feel confident in, to feel at ease in. And that's both internal with your emotions in your mind, and also external with your physical environment. And again, there's just so much out there now that we can do with looking at organic foods if the foods are bothering us, but find out the toxins that are really available. One of the things with MS and chronic disease and MS that we found, my ex-husband had MS. And one of the things we found out being in Colorado Springs is how much fluoride they put in the water.
Oh, wow.
And growing up with all of that fluoride, and that combined with a few other things here and there that he was exposed to, not that caused the MS, but it certainly helped when he had his amalgams taken out and the and the fluoride out of his system and things like that. So there's always physical parts to detox too, and I think it's really, really important right now to detox physically. So.
Yes, most definitely. And talking about detoxing, you also talk about routines and rhythms. So let me ask you, what strategies do you recommend for developing routines that support both healing and productivity?
The routine of the circadian rhythm to start with, get back to nature. Notice that it's springtime out. Notice that the sun is hot and it's summer. Notice that it's winter out now and that we kind of draw in wintertime and things like that. Getting back to nature is an amazing, amazing way to start regulating your body and balancing that energy. And that also leads to, as far as the productivity, the routines are when you have a disease and when you've been diagnosed with a disease, that throws your whole world off.
Exactly.
Absolutely throws your world off. And so what you want to do is create as much routine as you possibly can to support yourself.
Exactly.
And when you're talking about creating habits, the habits really need to be done over and over and over again. That same action needs to be completed over and over again. And obviously the easiest way to do that is create a routine around it.
Exactly. And so, I'll just share my routine a little bit because I took my routine and I created this neural productivity GPT, like using the AI stuff. And I've learned that pretty well. So I've customized one and I put in my morning routine and I said, what are the benefits of this morning routine? And that was sitting in a massage chair, that was doing yoga, that was sitting down and writing out my goals and affirmations, writing out 5 things I'm grateful for, writing out my intentions for the day, prayer. So it's almost like an hour and a half of just my time to kind of start the day, right? Using those kind of principles. And it was, it enhances your ability of your frontal lobe. So your executive function kicks in more. It realigns your energy levels. It detoxifies your body. It activates your reticular activating system with writing out your goals. And so my point is that rhythms and routines can help you transform your body into that new identity that we were talking about earlier. so that
Absolutely.
in that new place, and because you're constantly de-stressing your body, you actually, one, give your body a chance to heal. And then two, your intuitive voice becomes a lot more robust, or you can hear it when you're not in a stress state where your amygdala is constantly, you're being chased by a bear, I'm being chased by a bear kind of mindset, but that you're in a place that you can gravitate to. And I like what you talk about in your book, because I really don't do it as often as I should, but you talk about walking outside barefoot. And that may sound kind of weird, but the point is that we have a vibrational and energy field, and the earth has a energy field. And when we are grounded in the earth, there's something that happens energetically throughout our bodies when we're touching Mother Earth, if you will, and being mindful of it. How that's also a part of the healing process. And
so true.
It sounds a little woo-woo, but it really works.
It really, really, really works. It's probably, if I could tell anybody to do anything, it would be to get outside more. Sit in the sun without sunscreen on for a couple of minutes, and just use the earth, use the world's energy, the natural energy around us. Your body is a natural thing, and so you need to be in tune with that natural world around us. And I do believe that's one of the root causes of a lot of disease, is not being outside. Because as I was going through my rehabilitation, if you will, I loved walking outside, and I forced myself to walk outside on uneven ground because it would force my brain to rewire, because I was constantly having to balance, and I would just take it slow, and I would just take in the warm air, and I'd take in the surroundings. But I knew that, and I tried not to do it too much or go too far away from the house and that kind of thing, so I wouldn't fall and whatnot. But it made such a big difference in my healing process because, one, I was outside, I felt close to nature, and because the ground was uneven, it was constantly working neurologically to rewire or to build in, to kind of correct the issues that were going on. I'm so glad you found that therapy, and the fact that it worked is amazing, and it does work. And there's really not a disease that something you can find will work.
Exactly.
And you don't have to rely on just the medical protocol. And, so often that leads you into being that hopeless victim so many times because eventually the medicines aren't going to work. Your body kind of gets to a level point that it just doesn't work. And so you have to, you have to be able to think outside that box. And that's where yourself steps in.
Right.
Taking care of yourself, and that responsibility has to step in.
Exactly. Now, I want to talk about two more areas, and that is managing cravings and addictions. How can individuals address cravings or addiction that hinder their health goals and daily performance?
I think they have to recognize that they have them. Obviously, that's anything that you have to do. Right. And I think I had the story in the book about my craving, or my guilty pleasure, I was going to call it, of the coffee. You have a sweet mocha latte, and it's right there. As I'm dropping the kids off to school, I can, swing right in there and get one of those.
Right.
And it tortured me every time. I just And so what I realized when I kind of stopped and said, this is crazy, by 11 o'clock every morning, I'm having problems. I had to stop and think about it. And by kind of working through what I was doing and what it was just, I was kind of overwhelmed.
Right.
And that was my little self-care for me to do that. I can do this. I'm going to do it no matter what. Everybody's getting a coffee now, and it's a mom thing to do, and that kind of thing. But I had to step back because I had to remember that I have my own normal.
Right.
And I have my own body that I had to take care of.
Exactly. You're on your own journey.
And so that craving, I kind of replaced it with something else. And I do have another story because I had being a mom that was always, we were busy, we were working, we were at Scouts, we were this, we were that, everything. And I really craved just having just one-on-one female companionship, just a friend to talk to, a lot. And I missed that so much. And so I thought it was just that I just couldn't do anything. It's like, oh, I can't do this. I can't do that. I have to do this with my kids and blah, blah, blah. And so I was very, I realized that I was just missing the companionship.
Yeah.
And so when I realized that, then I quit taking it out on the other pieces of my life.
Right.
And kind of calmed my system back down again, kind of calmed everything that it made it work out. So
exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. And that becomes, again, you go back into your rhythms and your routines and what works for you. One of the rhythms is very easy. Just schedule a massage for every month. That becomes a very positive thing to take care of yourself.
Exactly. It's a de-stressing. It's a de-stressor. You kind of getting taken care of, because everything that happens to us, it gets lodged somewhere in our bodies.
Absolutely. Yes.
Every negative thing, every positive thing, but especially every negative thing, every conversation, it gets lodged. And pretty soon, if you're not doing something to work that stress out and work out, if you will, it just kind of creates this blockage in your system of all that stress. So the last thing I want to talk about is reflecting and evaluating progress. Right? So how important is regular reflection in the healing journey, and what methods do you suggest for evaluating one's progress?
The reflection process, I would say, is constant. It really is constant. You can't go for very long trying to figure out if this food that you had today is going to make a difference to you, or if it did or didn't. You have to immediately decide, oh, that didn't work. Or if you take a new position in a job and the money might be great, but, you have to evaluate it within a couple of weeks, a month, or, a couple of months to see whether it's really fitting with you. Because if you are distressed constantly and you've seen a noticeable difference in your health, then you might as well get out now.
Yeah, the money may be good, but it's not going to be it's not the job for you if it's going to put you in the grave.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And, the evaluation piece of it, I kind of did a look back. I've always kind of done this on my birthday. I always kind of did a look back over my year. Okay. You can pat yourself on the back and you can say, oh my God, all of the different things that you've seen over the last year. And so it becomes it's important, and you can't go forward with a concrete plan. You can't continue your plan if you're not seeing where you're at. Right. And that kind of spells out the whole of the lifestyle and the whole of the healing habits piece of it. Yes. Is that you have to know where you're at. You have to know where you're starting from. You have to know where you want to get to. Right. You want to get to that healthy identity. And I'm not a very goal-oriented person. A goal is kind of, to me, is a check it. Oh, did that. That's not where we're at with healing. Right. This is a lifestyle. This is a lifetime. Yeah. So we can't ever think that we're done.
Exactly. So, it's definitely a process and a lifestyle. Well, listen, where can people learn more about you and get your book and just kind of get in touch with you if they have more questions or want coaching or want to know about your programs?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to talk to anybody. This is really my mission now. Excellent. So I have a website, Rebecca Renck, just RebeccaRenck.com. Okay. That'll take you to pretty much a menu that has everything. And
excellent.
The book is on Amazon, and it should be in Barnes & Noble within I'm guessing now, actually. And so, they're telling me. But pick up a copy. And if you have any questions, you can email me. The email address, that contact address is on the website. So
Excellent. Well, I thoroughly enjoyed the book. And
Thank you.
There's so much that we didn't talk about, whether it was gratitude and grace principle or detoxing or standard protocol or 180 degrees or Hawkeye perspective principle or law of attraction. I can go on. You have 20 of them.
You have 20 of them, yeah.
It was a great book. I learned a lot. There were things in the way you wrote them that hit me, that I've heard before, that hit me in a different way. I was like, ooh, I need to do something about that right now. Like the detox in my own environment with the digital tools, and that, I had some tools next to my bed that I was charging. It's like, that's probably not a good idea. After reading this and doing a little bit more research, I should know better than that. But this really, the way, I don't know if it's just the way you worded it and put it in there, it was like, it made me stop and think. So if you're looking for a book to make you stop and think about healthy habits, then you need to pick up Healthy Habits by Rebecca Renck. Rebecca, it's great talking to you. Thank you for writing the book and sharing your wisdom, because you're going to make the world a better place. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
If you're enjoying the content and finding it valuable, we would appreciate it if you could take a moment and leave us a review. Your feedback is important to us and helps us reach a wider audience. If you leave us a 5-star review, it would mean the world to us. Not only does it help us improve the podcast, but it also helps us attract more sponsors and grow our community. Thank you again for your support and for listening to the Productivity Smarts podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to Productivity Smarts, where we help you achieve your goals and live your best life. We hope you've gained valuable insights and actionable strategies to boost your productivity and increase your happiness and fulfillment. Remember to apply what you've learned and keep striving towards your goals. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our podcast for more inspiring episodes and expert advice from our host, Gerald J. Leonard. Until next time, keep pushing forward and unleashing your productivity smarts.